What's good, YouTube, man? We back with another reaction video. We about to react to how bad was Darko Milicic actually. All my NBA junkies tap in, man. I just did an NBA and NFL bust. That was Ryan Leaf. So we about to tap in to Darko Milicic, man. He got picked over Carmelo Anthony, man. If Carmelo would have ended up going to the Pistons, though, Melo already a legend, but his career would have been 10 times better if he got drafted to the Pistons, number 2. I don't even know why they picked Darko, bro. I don't know why, but I guess. But with that being said, we trying to get the channel to 10K subs, man. Tap in. This just not just a sports channel reaction, so I do everything. I do sports, music, shit, whatever, bro. Whatever y'all want to see. You know what I'm saying? But drop your comments, reactions, requested reactions in the comments. With that being said, I ain't gonna talk your ears off, man. We about to hop right into it, man. Let's get it.
Darko Milicic was the second overall pick in the famous 2003 NBA draft, selected behind only LeBron James, and before Carmelo, Bosh, and D-Wade. Milicic was one of the most interesting characters in NBA history, and his career has flamed out for several different reasons. Here's the Darko Milicic story, where we'll try to explain how bad he really was, how he screwed up his potential, and where he ranks among other famous NBA busts. New European Hope, and the infamous 2003 draft. Darko started his professional basketball career in the 2001-2002 season, playing for Hemo Farm in his native Serbia. His then coach drew the attention to the 7-foot 16-year-old, saying that Milicic will be NBA ready in a few years. Darko didn't believe this at first, and he wasn't the only one. However, after an impressive few seasons, he became the team's best player, and NBA scouts were indeed lurking around the Serbian phenom. The Detroit Pistons were trying to acquire the next big European star, and they thought that Milicic would follow in the footsteps of Dirk and Pau Gasol. The potential was certainly there. Darko was an agile and strong 7-footer who was comfortable with the ball in his hands, and he could pass, shoot, and dribble. The Pistons were on the hook. They ultimately selected Milicic second overall in the 2003 NBA draft.
Melo was fucking player of the year.
Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and several other players who had more than respectable NBA careers. Pistons and Darko. Bad fit. Bad attitude.
Horrible.
Unlike LeBron, Melo, or D-Wade, Darko Milicic came to a veteran team that was trying to win a championship. The roster was already set from the get-go, and Coach Larry Brown and the Pistons didn't overly count on the 18-year-old rookie. Coach Brown knew that it would be a struggle to find minutes for Milicic, with Ben and Rasheed Wallace, but Darko didn't do himself any favors. He should have been learning the NBA game, working hard, being respectful, coming in on time. But he did the opposite. Milicic came in with the mindset that he's the best thing since sliced bread, and that he, as an 18-year-old, was the best player on the team. Darko wasn't open to any criticism. He wasn't listening, and he frequently caused problems. It was a nightmare trying to deal with him. Darko played in just 34 games as a rookie, usually in garbage time. He scored a total of 48 points for the whole season, or just 1.4 points per game. Despite a lack of production and playing time, he became the youngest player ever in the NBA Finals when the Pistons won it in 2004.
The youngest to win an NBA championship,
and the 4th youngest player ever to play in the NBA at the time. Even though the Pistons president Joe Dumars claimed that Milicic would become one of the pillars of the team, his playing time didn't increase in the 2004-2005 season. Darko played in 37 games as a sophomore, spending less than 7 minutes on the floor for an average of 1.9 points per game. Since he wasn't getting any game action, Darko was miserable. He argued with everybody and often acted out, trying to get some attention and feed his enormous ego. He had anger issues and would often trash his house after he came home from practice. He wasn't listening and didn't really bond with the veterans on the Pistons. And after a while, they gave up on him. So he took matters into his own hands and started throwing mad parties. The word got out, and soon enough, when the opposing team visited Detroit, many of them ended up at Darko's house because they knew something was always going on there. Milicic had a big house.
Have you heard? Tempur-Pedic sleep?
With a club in the basement, and would often come to practice straight from the party. In his 3rd season, it was much of the same. Darko was getting only a few minutes per game. He was unhappy. They were unhappy with him. So the Pistons traded him to Orlando in the middle of his 3rd year. In 96 games for Detroit, he averaged just 1.6 points on a horrendous 34% shooting. Resurgence in Orlando, and a new NBA contract. With the change of scenery, Milicic began to show the glimpse of the potential that got him picked so high 3 years ago. He finally got some playing time and averaged about 20 minutes per contest, which he used for 8 points on 50% shooting, 4 rebounds, and over 2 blocks per game. Next season, he was solid again, with 8 points, 6 boards, and was once again among the league leaders in blocked shots. Milicic wanted to stay in Orlando, but his contract was expiring, and his new coach Stan Van Gundy told him he wasn't counting on it. Even though he really didn't want to live in Memphis, the Grizzlies were the only team to offer him a contract, which was worth $21 million over 3 years.
You better take that.
So he became a Grizzly, where he would average the same 8 points and 5 rebounds he had in Orlando, and they also traded him after a couple of seasons. He got to the Knicks before the start of the 2009-2010 season, but the Knicks brought him strictly to fill up a roster spot, and Darko never really got a chance there, playing only in 8 games and averaging 2 points. After that short stint with the Knicks, Darko completely lost his confidence at the age of 24. He was in his 7th NBA season, and he didn't find common ground anywhere. He was arguably worse at basketball than he was at 17 years old. Fed up, Darko decided to call it quits and vowed to return to Europe, where the game was more suited for his skill set. However, the Timberwolves showed interest and wanted to get him to Minnesota. They met with Darko at the trade deadline, who warned them not to trade for him. "Don't trade for me. I don't want to play there. I'll ruin your chemistry. I won't be diligent. I will only cause problems. Do not trade for me." Darko was very specific. A few days later, he became a new member of the Timberwolves, for reasons unknown to him. However, they had big plans for Darko in Minnesota, and they promised him that he would play, and they kept their promise. Darko started for the rest of the season, and he didn't suck. The Timberwolves saw something in him that the others didn't, and Milicic secured himself another NBA contract. The Wolves signed him for 4 years and $20 million. And with the trust of the team, Milicic had the best year of his career in 2011. He started in every game, averaging 9 points and 6 boards per game. He was also a top 5 blocker in the league, averaging 2 rejections per game in less than 25 minutes on the court. Those weren't exactly LeBron-like numbers, but still, Darko proved that he belongs and that he is a solid NBA center. He got his confidence back and started loving basketball again,
they should have never picked him over
first time since he got to the USA. Final years in the NBA, and retirement. Darko's happiness didn't last long, and the old problems showed their ugly head again. Milicic wasn't always motivated to play, and he wasn't living as an athlete should. Basketball was a job to him, and he didn't always like to produce on the job. Darko had a good friend in Minnesota named Nikola Pekovic, who was from Montenegro, a neighboring country to Serbia, where they speak the same language. Even though Pekovic was very talented, he didn't get much playing time behind Darko. He requested a trade at the beginning of the 2012 season. Darko didn't want to lose his friend, who shared the same language and culture, because he still felt extremely alienated in America and was desperate to keep Pekovic in Minneapolis. So, imagine this. Darko faked an injury to get his pace on some playing time. Pekovic used it to the fullest and became a part of the standard rotation, while Darko was relegated to the bench. Milicic only played 29 games in the 2012 season, and was so unhappy during practices that one of his teammates begged not to hurt him or anybody on the team, thinking that Darko might kill himself. The Timberwolves saw that he didn't give a damn about basketball anymore, so they used the amnesty clause to get his contract off the books. Darko then wanted to leave the NBA for good, but his manager insisted that he give Boston a shot, even though Darko knew that he wouldn't be playing. He came to Boston for the 2013 season, and they signed him to be their 3rd center. However, that didn't sit well with Darko's fragile ego, which swallowed too many hard pills already. After 20 games in the season, Milicic was on the court for only 5 minutes of garbage time in 1 game. He then decided that was all she wrote. As his teammates were getting ready to play a game against Toronto, Darko came to the locker room, shook everybody's hand, and said that he was leaving. Coach Rivers told him he was supposed to play that night and be a part of the playoffs. Darko said thanks, but no thanks. Save me the heroic Ubuntu speeches, coach. This suffering has to end. What I played, I played. I don't want to play anymore. Tyronn Lue came to his house the next day and tried to convince him to stay. Think about the money, Darko. You can still sign a few more contracts. F the money. I'm out of here, Darko said, and went home to Serbia.
Like, fuck that money.
A bust legacy, apples, and kickboxing. Darko came into the NBA when fellow Serbian players were dominating. Peja Stojakovic was the best shooter in the league.
Facts.
And Vlade Divac was one of the best big men for years.
Facts.
However, he didn't take any of their advice. He thought everything he did was God-given and believed he could easily cope with the NBA
You
game.
got drafted
I
behind
looked at
LeBron
things the
James,
wrong
bro.
way, and I behaved badly. I was supposed
Before
to be grateful
Carmelo
to be
and
a
Wade
part of
and
a
Bosh.
championship team, but I was an ass. Later on, when I played for bad teams, I couldn't get excited for the game because I knew we were going to lose. When I played only for myself and my ego. When I was playing against Gasol or Duncan, I wanted to prove that I can beat them. The next night against a mediocre center, I didn't even want to be on the court. I hated basketball. Even when I was playing well and I scored 20 points, I couldn't wait for the game to end. I was arrogant, and I drove coaches crazy. They would yell at me, and I'd tell them I forgot English a year ago, which made them even madder. During his 9-year
he is
NBA
wild.
career, Darko played in 468 games. He spent an average of 18 minutes on the court and scored just 6 points per game, which definitely qualifies him as a bust. He earned $52 million, which he admits he didn't deserve. He pissed away a lot of it, but he also invested some, bought some land, and is now growing and selling apples. Darko also had one professional kickboxing match, which he lost, and where he broke the scale at the weigh-ins. Even though he left the NBA at the age of 27 and could have played for another decade in Europe, he was disgusted with
Right.
basketball, and he just wanted to run away from it. His biggest problem
That
was
shit be
always his hot head
crazy.
and immaturity. If he stayed in Europe until he was 21 or 22, and if he didn't have the expectations of a high draft pick, his story would have probably been different, and he probably wouldn't be a bust at all. The approach to my career from the beginning was wrong. I'm not running away from it. My whole life, I'll be a second pick who didn't produce. However, in some ways, I am different from other busts. They wanted to be good, but they couldn't. With me, when I wanted to play well, I could, but I often didn't want to. Darko.
Yeah, man, that boy Darko, wow, man. They really picked him over Wade, Melo, and Bosh. That's crazy. Got picked number 2 behind LeBron James. That's crazy, man. All my NBA junkies tap in, man. Pistons fans tap in. I ain't gonna talk y'all ears off, man. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. With that being said, y'all stay safe, stay tuned, and we out.